Hi, let's continue the story of what causes bipolarity in my way of thinking. If you're lost, you can go to the table of contents, which is also linked at the end of this video. The introduction to this playlist presented 5 factors that seem to be involved in bipolar. In this video, we'll look at reward sensitivity. And the bottom line here is, it looks like one of the ways in which bipolar brains are different is in the way one brain region can become overactive when making decisions about rewards, like the odds of winning a bet. TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation using this powerful magnet, can decrease this overactivation. That's only just now being studied, but the implications are profound. And one research team that's working on all this is led by Dr. Mary Phillips. This video is kind of my attempt to translate her team's work into conversational terms. Her recent lecture about the team's discoveries is on YouTube, and this is what her slides look like. So if you're ready for a serious neuroscience presentation and rapid slides of research results, you can just go there now, search bipolar reward Phillips. But her lecture might be a little easier to follow if you hear a plain English summary first. That's this one. By the way, the size of her team and the results they're cranking out are an indication of what a wonderful person Dr. Phillips is, including her ability to gather all these people and the funding to support many of them. She's a remarkably gracious scientific leader. So now let's take this all apart. What is reward sensitivity? Where in the brain does this seem to be coming from? And what happens if activity in that region is damped down with the big head magnet? So first, reward sensitivity. This is about expectations of a good outcome. Your brain functions like a sort of a computer, making estimates about chances, like the odds of winning a bet. Say, what's he got in his right hand? And would you bet on that card? Bipolar brains seem prone to sometimes overestimate the chance of a win, the chance of a good outcome. In the words of Dr. Phillips, people with bipolar seem capable of latching on to the possibility of a reward. Got that? It's so important. Latching on to the possibility of a reward. This leads to risk-taking when the probability of a reward is low. Her team uses an MRI scanner to look at what parts of the brain are active during a reward-related task. This is so-called functional MRI, where active parts of the brain light up, not the MRI for your swollen knee or painful back. While in the MRI scanner, participants play a kind of video game, trying to predict the value of a playing card. The game is set up so they win about half the time. Here's the key thing. When participants are given extra information that their guess is likely going to be correct, that generates an expectation of reward. So what does the MRI scan look like when that expectation of reward is activated? Like this. The yellow region is so important, I think you'll want to remember the name. So let me walk you through it. Looking at the brain from the side, the main active region is at the front of the wrinkly stuff, the cortex. It's kind of facing down, so it's called the ventral cortex, not dorsal, ventral. Looking at the brain from behind, the active region is on the side of the wrinkly stuff, so it's called the ventrolateral cortex. And looking down from the top, we can see that this region is at the front of the wrinkly stuff, indeed at the very front, the so-called prefrontal cortex, and only on the left. So this part of the brain is called the ventrolateral prefrontal cortex. That's the left ventrolateral prefrontal cortex. When anticipating a possible reward, This region of the brain is more active in people with bipolar than in people with plain depression or people with no mood problems. That increased activity in this region of the brain is associated with higher scores on a standard measure of impulsive risk-taking. So if activity in the left ventrolateral prefrontal cortex is likely to be increased when people are having manic symptoms, and if they were wanting to dial that down, is there a way to decrease activity in that part of the brain without disturbing the function of other parts? Answer, yes. You've heard of transcranial magnetic stimulation, TMS, using a powerful magnet to place a portion of the brain in a magnetic field that goes right through bone. The term's not exactly right because correctly timed magnetic pulses can also be used to decrease the activity in a part of the brain, inhibiting neurons, not just stimulating them. For example, using inhibitory settings over the occipital cortex, the part that controls vision, causes a sort of temporary blindness. So Dr. Phillips' group has tried using inhibitory TMS to decrease the activity of the left ventrolateral prefrontal cortex in people with bipolar. This might seem bold, but TMS is remarkably safe and it's been around for quite a while. So this wasn't a really big leap. And the result? Well, the answer turns out to be not quite as clear as they might have wished. It's just more complicated as the brain, after all. So this graph from the research team's April 2024 paper, I won't take you through it, but it suggests there's another brain region that has to be factored in to understanding this reward circuitry. And a French research group has found that results don't fit with the simple model of just reward hypersensitivity. So there's more to learn about this yet. Using this kind of TMS as a treatment, not a research tool, that would require a different kind of testing, adding TMS to a standard treatment for manic symptoms and comparing the results versus adding so-called sham TMS, same setup, but don't turn on the magnetic field. And that research hasn't been done yet. It has been done for something we've called dark therapy, using these amber lenses. So for now, someone looking for a non-medication way to damp down manic symptoms, well, we already have one and should look at this approach. There's a video about that dark therapy on this channel, and I'll give you a link to it in a moment. Like TMS, amber lenses are very low in risk, practically zero, but amber lenses only cost about $10, and they've already had that crucial test. And just to tempt you, look at this result. In a study in patients who'd been hospitalized for mania, symptoms went down much faster amongst the people wearing those blue blocking amber lenses from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., the lights out bedtime in the hospital. You can watch the dark therapy video for the details of that study. So to summarize, one of the roots of bipolar is a tendency toward heightened expectations of a good outcome, reward hypersensitivity. This can lead to manic symptoms of over-energization, impatient, angry, wanting to get going, too much energy. But reward hypersensitivity could also be part of what one artist calls the bipolar superpower, the ability to see possibilities when no one else does. Reward hypersensitivity appears to be localized to the left ventrolateral prefrontal cortex. And whether TMS can be used as a treatment, that hasn't been studied yet. But these results are pointing the way to finally understanding what makes bipolar brains different. Super exciting. Of course, that could be my own left ventrolateral prefrontal cortex talking, so I'll keep an eye on that. Here's that dark therapy video, or you can continue this playlist about what causes bipolar, or you can head back to the table of contents. Thanks for watching.